Hello guys, Dr.Pitanger here, and today, since my last video about what 6 stars you should upgrade as new players for IS was very successful, and some people actually asked for a video about 5 stars and 4 stars, I'm gonna give you exactly this. However, I'm gonna change the format a bit, because I want to address two things. First of all, some people told me, why didn't I mention this operator or that operator, for example, Saria, Olpianus, Phantom? And I just want to say, if you're a new player, all of these critics are absolutely valid. Absolutely upgrade Saria or Olpianus or Phantom if you get them. It's just that this format was a bit restrictive, unfortunately. So you guys are absolutely right about this. And second of all, I want to address a second point, because I have seen people recommending some insane units, in my opinion. And I just want to clarify something. This video, as well as a lot of videos on my channel, was intended mainly for new IS players, which means I'm recommending some generally good units. What I mean by that is that you need to understand that there is a huge difference between very high in-game Arknights plays, like for example Risk 34 or something, and a new player simply wanting to jump in Arknights. Let me give you a concrete example. This is a footage of Risk 34 CC12. As you can see, the person playing here is using 9 units. Risk 34 is by far one of the hardest challenges in Arknights, so new players might be thinking, oh, so these 9 units are extremely powerful, so I should definitely upgrade them. In my opinion, among the 9 units you can see here, I would recommend to upgrade 4 of them. That's because high endgame Arknights plays often rely on CC rotation and stuff like that. But if you're a new Arknights player, and particularly a new IS player, you should absolutely not rely on these kind of strategies. You shouldn't try to already master some high endgame strategies when you're starting out. You should, on the contrary, discover what unit does what unit is good at what, and so on. Which is why some people describe themselves as niche knight players, because they like to use some specific units that they find particularly attractive. I'm also technically a niche knight player, because I only use women. Because I'm honey as fuck. Anyway, I think you get the point. Because some units are very good in high-end plays, doesn't mean that you should recommend them to new players. For example, I would never recommend Cliffheart or Feeder or Manticore, even though you can see on this footage that they are used. But if you give a new player or someone that is actually interested in Arknights this footage, do you think this person wants to play this kind of gameplay? Probably not. So that's why today I'm gonna give you a list of 16 operators, but this time it's only gonna be one 5-star operator and one 4-star operator. This time I'm gonna include welfares, and since this is a bit restrictive, I'm gonna give you some other units that you can also upgrade, and maybe they are not gonna perform as much as the units I'm gonna mention, but they are totally fine for IS, at least for low level difficulties. So without further ado, let's start. For guards, I would recommend Lapland and Cutter. Lapland is a fantastic guard that you can also get for free thanks to some 5-star tickets that any new player gets. She can deal mixed damage, she can silence, which is extremely powerful in the early game and also very valuable, for example in IS-2. She can attack aerial units, the module gives her a bit of fragile, which is extremely powerful. So yeah, overall one of the best 5 stars in the game. Cutter is basically one of the best 4 stars in the game. She can also deal damage to aerial units thanks to her skill. She deals extremely high AoE damage. She has a chance to gain more SP per attack, meaning she can spam a skill, and overall she's one of the units I like to start the most with if I don't get a 6-star from the beginning. Definitely one of the top guard picks in my opinion. I also want to mention some other units like Spectre, an extremely good lane holder that can tempo for several seconds, Bybeak, a unit that has the same class as Cutter and can also stun but suffer from not being able to gain as much SP as Cutter, for example, and Tequila, a free unit that you can get in Docile as Holidays that can deal very high AoE damage. I can also mention Hummus, the lowest rarity Reaper guard in the game that is able to hold his own, as well as Quartz, a decent guard that has the drawback of having 0 defense, so absolutely use her with a medic if you want to, but overall I would still stick with Cutter if you get her. For vanguards, I just want to mention that there's so many good 5-star vanguards, but in my opinion the one that sticks out the most is Black Knight, and for 4-star it's obviously Myrtle. Black Knight is one of the most reliable sleeper in the game. She can deal arts damage, which for a vanguard is pretty rare. She can attack aerial units. Just don't really consider her a DP generator. That's what, for example, other 5 stars I want to mention do. Like for example Cantabile, who can also attack aerial units, who can generate DP much faster, or Elysium, who can inflict fragile, and is basically Myrtle on acid. The 4-star Myrtle, I mean, I don't need to explain that much about her. I don't think a single person right in his head wouldn't advise you to upgrade the Myrtle. She's just one of the best units in the game, even in high-end plays, and absolutely upgrade her whenever you get her. For casters, it may come as a surprise if you have played other gachas where the protagonist or the deuteragonist is basically a useless unit, but here no, I would absolutely advise you to upgrade your Amiya, and for 4-star you probably want to upgrade your Click. Amiya is hard to describe, because while I do advise to upgrade her, Amiya isn't necessarily strong because of her caster form. Amiya has 2 other forms that you unlock, one by clearing a stage in chapter 8 and one by clearing a stage in chapter 14. These other versions are her guard form and her medic form, and usually they are considered better. In fact, all 3 of her forms have a way to deal true damage, and true damage in IS is extremely powerful, particularly since there's that one relic that increases true damage by 2.5 times. But what Amiya does better is that she's extremely versatile. Let's say you're lacking a blocker and you get offered a caster voucher or a medic voucher. Then suddenly you can get a blocker because you can recruit Amiya even with a caster voucher if yours is in guard form. Or you can recruit medic Amiya with a guard voucher, for example, if you lack a medic. That's Amiya's main strength, being able to fill a role that you wouldn't be able to fill if you don't get a specific voucher. The other one, Click, is simply a very good caster that is able to stun, deal pretty high damage for rarity, have increased range on her S2, and is overall a very good stalling unit. Another unit that is very similar is Indigo. Indigo does pretty much what Click does, but can be a bit less reliable sometimes. Still, if you want to upgrade Indigo instead of Click, then that's absolutely fine. For snipers, there's only one 5-star snipers that I'm gonna advise to upgrade, and that's Crusalter. Crusalter is actually a free unit that you can get from the event Invitation to Wine. Crusalter is extremely powerful, particularly for Ice 3, because she has built-in stun with every auto attack, which is unbelievably powerful for this game mode. For 4-star, I will advise you to upgrade Pinecone. There are a lot of good 4-star snipers. There are also May, Embryo, but still I'm gonna advise you to upgrade Pinecone because unlike May and Embryo, who both stun just like Crusalter, which would be a bit repetitive, Pinecone doesn't do that. What Pinecone does is damage. She does a fuck ton of damage. So much so that she's actually better at dealing damage than the 5-star equivalent of her own subclass. So yeah, definitely upgrade the Tiny Burb if you get her. In an early Ice run, she can demolish a lot of enemies with her AoE attacks. For supporters, I'm gonna advise you Shamare and Podenko. Shamare is easily the best debuffer in the entire game thanks to her global range with her puppet, so she can be used in pretty much every team as long as you already have some good sources of damage. And Podenko is a very specific operator because she's one of the few supporters that is able to heal, at least in her rarity. So that's a unit that you will pick, for example, if you get offered a supporter voucher but you realize that you lack a lot of healing, but then you remember this unit exists and then you pick her. Another unit I could mention is Roberta. Roberta is the lowest DP cost supporter that is able to block, which is also very useful and is also very niche, just like Podenko. Also, her one instant shields can be extremely clutch in some situations against some bosses. For specialists, I would advise Kazemaru and Jay. Kazemaru is often described in the community as a 6-star in disguise because she's extremely powerful. In IS particularly, she benefits from spinach-like items, she can benefit from the Dollkeeper item if you know how to use it, she can deal mixed damage, she's almost invincible, so yeah, one of the best 5-stars in the game. Jay is also extremely strong. He's a unit that can deal both damage and heal your team, including himself. On top of that, he's extremely powerful against some specific enemies enemies, like for example the Pompeiis you may encounter in IS-3, because he deals increased damage to infected creatures. Other units I want to mention are Project Red, who can stun and also dodge depending on a skill, and is a fast redeploy, meaning you can use this stun every 18 seconds. Kafka does basically the same thing, except she doesn't stun, she sleeps, which is actually very relevant, particularly in high-end plays against certain bosses. Still, if you're a new player, you should probably not upgrade her. There are much better units like Project Red that I just mentioned, and Project Red can actually be recruited for free with another 5-star vouchers that new players get. Another 4-star I want to mention is Ethan. Ethan is a free red certificate shop unit that is not very new player friendly, I would say, because his main skill is his S2, and his S2 actually becomes stronger when his module is unlocked, and you probably don't want to spend module data blocks on Ethan as a new player. Still, his S1 can be used in some very specific events, like for example Invitation to Wine that I mentioned before, and once you start getting into high surging waves or braving nature, you can absolutely upgrade his module and use Ethan. For medics, I would advise Telopsis and Purestream. Telopsis has an unbelievably powerful talent that increases SP regeneration for the whole team. I can't stress enough how good this is. Another unit that does basically the same is Warfarin, but that's only for one unit in a range on top of her, and Warfarin only heals one single target, while Telopsis heals in AoE. However, Warfarin also buffs, so keep that in mind. These are usually the best 5-star medics in the game. However, I feel like I should also mention the two berries, that is Honeyberry and Mulberry. They both have the same role in that they can heal elemental damage, which can be very useful for stages against nervous impairment or corrosion, most notably in IS-3 and IS-2, and it's also worth mentioning that Honeyberry is a free red certificate unit. Purestream, on the other hand, is probably the unit in this list I would recommend the least. Purestream isn't very new player friendly because she absolutely needs her module. Once you get her module, however, she's one of the best pure healer in the game for the hope she costs. She can heal in AoE, she has an extremely high healing input, so a very good unit as long as you can upgrade her, but definitely don't upgrade her first. I could also mention Perfumer, who has global passive healing, which is extremely strong, particularly for a new player. If you'd rather have global healing, then you should probably upgrade Perfumer instead. Just know that Purestream is probably better for a long-term player. Finally, we have Defenders. For Defenders, I would advise Fire Whistle and Gummy. Fire Whistle is not your typical defender, she is a fortress defender, meaning she's actually a ranged damage dealer that can also block 3. Fire Whistle also deals arts damage, she deals damage over time, and can be a very strong opener and also has a powerful relic made for her. Gummy is a very strong healer, which is pretty weird because she's a defender, but unlike most other Guardian, she's able to heal any unit to full HP, because most other Guardian defenders only activate their skill when said unit is at half HP, so that can be very useful sometimes. Other units I want to mention are Kuora and Bubble. They both do pretty much the same thing, that is to say they have an extremely high defense, which can be useful against some bosses when you just want to tank them. Kuora has passive regeneration, while Bubble reflects some damage, so in most cases they are pretty much replaceable. It just depends on who you have or who you like the most. Alright, and that concludes this list, so thank you for watching this video. Leave a like, subscribe, and see you in the next one.